So this slide, although it is very generic, when we start a company, I thought a lot about this because I'm sure you've had this. You have a good idea, right? A lot of people have great ideas for things they want to do. I think the hardest thing about taking that great idea is actually making it come to life. And I think the only way you can really do that is if you feel strongly enough about it. I've had plenty of great ideas, I think, for companies that run the gamut of many, many different things. And it's kind of the same thing when we're in our newsroom meetings. People are like, I got a really great idea for a story. Well, if they're not really into it, they won't pitch it the way they need to pitch it. Same thing if you have to apply for a business loan to a bank. You have to really be sold on your own story. So I always bring that up as the first thing. First step of really kind of starting out as a business, which you guys all have. But I think that's one thing that most people, I don't think, give a whole lot of thought to when they get going. And I ask the question, is it good enough? Is it really good enough to stand behind? And can you back it up with your own passion? I also like to think that there's really no perfect or direct path to how you can go from a startup to being a success. And really what that success means to you. Is it, well, I'm going to get to that here in a second, but money or whatever else. I like to say really it's kind of about the journey. I don't know if Blur MediaWorks, the company that I've started 5 years ago, or if my adventure company that I just recently started up, or the Players Club, if they'll ever get to a point where I can say they were a full success. But I know in that period, it's all about the journey and things that you learn. You're putting yourself out there, you're doing something that no one's done before, you're trying things that no one's done before, and because of that, you're going to learn things that no one else has learned. So I'd already say, no matter how far you are in your startup, you're already to a point where you're learning something that will further you down the road. Really kind of what's the point? What's your motivation? Is it money? Is it fame? Is it seeing a void in the market and trying to expose that? It's kind of the same thing we do with stories. It's kind of like, why do I want to do a story on X, Y, or Z? Do I want to do that for the fame? Do I want to expose something? Expression and style, I think, has a lot to do with it too. Kind of what's your style? And people talk about brands these days with startups and other companies. But how do you actually express your company, the style in which you go about putting it together, the style in which everything comes together, which will be your brand, your logo, how you talk to clients, is kind of the same way with telling a story. You had to figure out really how you were going to express the points that you wanted to make and the style in which you wanted to go about it. And I have a few different videos loaded up that kind of showcase different styles in which I had to choose. So I just think that these are all good questions to ask yourself. So I kind of want to get into the actual parallels, and we're going to get into some videos, and some of them may be short, and some of them are kind of longer, so I may butt out of them unless you guys are totally engrossed into them. I want you to This was the first story I did as a reporter, and I think it's important to kind of remember where you started. I think at times for reflection in your companies, it's good to kind of look back and see where you were with your first ideas, where you were with your first client, where you were with a lot of those ideas you initially had. And it's fun for me to watch some of these old stories. And you'll notice pretty much every video that I'm going to show you is in 4:3 aspect ratio because I'm old. So I didn't shoot HD when I worked in news. We started shooting HD when I started my company. So you'll notice the quality isn't that great, but none of this was shot on film, I can tell you that much. So we was going to watch this really quick story. You get a good laugh at it, but it just helped me kind of remember where I got started.
The cackle and roar of a Harley may bring music to ears of the Hells Angels, but for residents, the sound of these machines is anything but pleasing.
They're piping pretty loud. I listened to some of them that probably could hear them from a mile away.
Tom Wells has lived in this house since 1973, and with the Hells Angels driving by all day and night, he says has brought some commotion to what was a quiet neighborhood.
I'm a light sleeper, so I have a hard time going to sleep and listening to all this racket and racket.
At the end of this road is Marshall Mountain, where the Hells Angels are having the rally. residents, this is the only road leading to that mountain. Overall, the group hasn't caused any major problems, and hopefully, the noise is the only thing these residents have to worry about.
I just be glad when it's over. I'll sleep better.
Yeah, first story. It was in Missoula, Montana. Hell's Angels came into town. It was actually quite the spectacle. And I hadn't read Hell's Angels yet, which I wish I would have before that started, because I was not liked very much by the Hell's Angels, as you can see by some of the facial expressions I got from them when I was filming them. But I watched that story and I kind of think to myself, I was like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? It definitely made me learn that I didn't want to be a reporter very much longer. Kind of sucked. But I was able to kind of take some of the skills that I learned as a reporter and as a photojournalist, because I shot the footage as well, and start to kind of figure out where I wanted to go with my career. And really kind of reflecting on that. It's like, I think the shots and the filming I did were a lot better than the reporting. So again, it's just that progression. What am I good at? What's best to delegate to somebody else? Just those little questions. I think reflection's a big part of that. And I just like to watch some of those first things, first stories I did to kind of remind me of that. Progression's a big part, I think, of a startup as well. I can relate to that in the story. Like, you can really, like I said, you can start a company up and you can go a million different ways. You could be really fortunate and lucky and land a huge client that's going to allow you to hire 2 or 3 people. You could bring on some partner and help with this task. You could have 3 interns to help you. You could do your own thing. You could be startup city. You could get an office. There's like a million different scenarios of which direction, which path your company's going to go and how it's going to grow. I think that is a necessary thing to do, and I think, again, that first point I wanted to make about kind of reflecting about where you've been is a really good thing. This story reminds me a lot of progression. Some things don't always work out the way you want them to work out. I'm sitting at the office. I had a long ass day. I was really, really, really tired. And Mark Tauschek, one of the reporters, came up to me. He's like, "Brad, I had a long day. I want to do this interview with this couple tonight. I'd really like you to shoot it with me." And I was like, "Fuck you, Mark. I do not have time. Please leave me alone." And he essentially begged me to shoot it. And I was like, "Okay, I will shoot this with you, but I'm not happy about it." We had to drive to Boone. You know, it's like I didn't even know what the story was about, but he told me as we went there. Set up my camera, started the interview, and as soon as this guy started talking, I had goosebumps, and I was like having the time of my life. Shot there for about 3 hours that night, shot a few different scenes, and slowly but surely, I was learning really what Mark's plan was for this story, and I got excited as well. Later, this story ended up winning 2 Edward R. Murrow Awards, which I've been nominated for several Emmys, but I'm most proud of this story and the award that it got, because it's really about storytelling and broadcast journalism. But you'll see watching this what we learned and how we didn't have a set plan for what we expected the story to be. We let it evolve. And I think that's a big part of a startup as well, is making sure that you're not ignoring some things that have come to light. You're not so focused on this set plan that you have. You're willing to be flexible and let it progress. So I won't maybe watch the whole thing, but I think it is a fun story to watch.
I'm cleaning the copper mechanisms of a Dutch bell with kerosene and steel wool.
Marlo Cowan is one of a kind.
I haven't got this yet where I want it.
From his workshop in Ankeny, he does what no other American and few in the world can do.
I've got to work on this. See, this is what comes in. They come in like this with a crack.
He knows how to fix every type of hand bell.
People say, well, can I repair my own bells? And I said, well, yeah, you could. And it takes a little doing. You can't do it in 5 minutes.
Marlo receives bells from every state, repairing approximately 1,000 a year, and he's never even advertised his services. But while his bell biz is booming,
No, this is not particularly the part that we enjoy.
he doesn't just fix them.
Merry Christmas!
Every Christmas season, Marlowe plays them.
Hey, that's fun. Merry Christmas!
On several afternoons, he and his wife Frances set up outside a store and take Salvation Army bell ringing to another level,
Thank you, man. We really appreciate it. Have a nice Christmas.
playing homemade instruments that ring.
Merry Christmas!
The performances together date back to their days at Iowa State when Marlowe first laid eyes on a young Frances performing.
She was playing the piano over there, and so I was attracted to the piano. And so that's kind of how we met.
They've been sharing their lives and the stage ever since with vaudeville-based routine.
Music has been the most important thing, I think, that's kept us enjoying each other and enjoying life.
Now both are in their mid-80s.
Lucky to be here tonight. We're lucky to be any place at our age.
And they're still perfect harmony. A few times a year, they'll pull out their assortment of homemade instruments. Instruments that have to be seen to be understood.
I don't like it, but I don't have to listen to it. But a lot of places we go where people come up and say, we haven't laughed so much in years.
Isn't that pathetic? He's crazy.
That's not a very nice word. I'll take it.
After 57 years of marriage, they're not only fun to watch perform, it's also fun to see two people so meant to be together.
Well, we feel like if we've been given a talent, we should share it
That's right.
and make pleasure and happiness in other people.
And it isn't very often that somebody gets to share talent with such a beautiful partner.
Oh man, listen to this. Oh,
Well, it's the truth.
what are you doing?
Merry Christmas!
Mark Tauschek, Channel 13 News.
Thank you! Merry Christmas!
I know some of you walked in late, and I'm just curious, like, what were your thoughts on what you caught of that story?
Couple fun elderly couple, or a couple of fun elderly people who are a couple.
Nice. I was kind of talking about progression, about how progressing your company, progressing your startup, really is parallel to kind of a progression of a story. And the point I was trying to make, and I hope you guys caught that, I initially went with Mark to interview this guy about repairing these old handbells. And in that 3-hour interview, we ended up talking to his wife and interviewing them together. And we both realized that the story wasn't necessarily that this guy was cool and he repaired old handbells across the road. It was the fact that this couple goes out and like makes people happy with their routines and really kind of the love they had for each other. So the story actually ran, I think, on Christmas Day. But I mean, that's a perfect example. It's like I was telling you guys, I did not want to go on that shoot, but I did it. I made the most of it. But how could I ignore that couple? The story wouldn't, and it's funny that you said that because you thought the story was about the couple. And that's what it ended up being. But if I would have went and closed mine and said to myself, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to ignore everything else, you're not going to come out as well as you would have if you've listened to things, you've thought about them, you've reflected, and utilized everything that you have available to you. And like I said, ultimately it paid off. The award was great, But when I watch that story, like I still get choked up because I remember like how awesome they were. And they're actually both still alive. They're out there in their 90s, and they still do this on occasion. It's an amazing couple. Oh, yeah, failure. Does anyone have any questions thus far? Just keep going. This isn't boring.
Where'd you go to school at, and did you do film technology for school?
Yeah, I went to Iowa State, and I studied journalism and psychology. I actually went to Indian Hills Community College for 2 years, which allowed me to major in 2 subjects. I learned a lot from school, from journalism school, but at the time I was going to college at Iowa State, I was working as an intern at WHO. And I'm a hands-on guy, so I learned a lot more from my internship, part-time job with them and WHO Radio than I did in the classroom. And I think the same thing applies when you're working on a startup. It's like you could go 4 years to school and learn a lot of things that would be helpful, but honestly doing it every day, you will learn more in 4 years than you would in the classroom. That's, I don't want to bash colleges or universities, but that's just kind of where it came from. Any other questions? Failure is mandatory, so I've kind of jumped a little bit in my progression. I showed these guys actually the first video that I did, which wasn't horrible. I was a reporter, and it made me learn that I didn't want to be a reporter. I figured I'd be a lot better if I was a photojournalist. The last story I showed was actually something I had done probably 6-7 years after I've done this story. So this story I'm going to show you is what we call a NATS package. It's where you just gather sound, and that's all that's used in the piece. Visuals and sound, natural sound, interviews, sounds of whatever it may be around to tell the story. It was my first try at it. I was sick. I remember trying to use that excuse with my boss when I told him I wasn't feeling well. But I tried something new. I wanted to try to do a nat sound piece, and they're like, okay, go do it on the Burr ride. It was the Burr ride. It's February. It's a cold bike ride. I liked the ride, so I wanted to do something on it. But it was the first time I had done it. And I think one of the most powerful things people can do is to try something for the first time. And I was talking earlier about that I worked on my house. I think a lot of people, when they see it, they're like, hey, you must work in the trades. You must have done this before. And I said, no, I haven't, honestly. But I was never afraid to fail at something, because a lot of times you learn the most from failure. I think probably the people that find the most success in business are people that are willing to fail at something on a small level to learn from that and make it better. Actually, this is kind of off topic, but I work doing video training for an organization in the Bay Area, and we were in Nepal last year, and I was training some of their journalists, and this girl who started up that company, that organization, talks a lot about failing forward. If you're going to fail forward. Don't fail and be like, God, I learned my lesson, I'm never going to try that again. It's more along the lines of, okay, I'm going to learn what I can from this and then do it better. So this is like the first story that I tried to do as a nat sound piece, and I'm pretty sure this was a failure, but I'll take your thoughts.
I'm not gonna have Carrie. You can feel the wind coming, but when you're riding, it's really not too bad.
Cold is only a figment of your imagination.
It's not yesterday when it was 8 below, so this is beautiful weather.
Don't seem to be many bikes around, but I figure this place I'll get there eventually. Nobody dies, and there are no rules.
We had layering technique on our feet. We had socks, newspaper, plastic bag, socks, and then your shoes.
After relief here heading on back, it'll be a lot easier to ride, so not too bad.
It kind of, oh yeah, there's my old slate. Pretty awesome.
South 4th Street.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a bunch of mail now.
God, that's hilarious, actually. So yeah, I mean, I tried. I think I failed at really telling the story. I think it was kind of fun. I think if you were into the burr ride or biking, I think you'd find it kind of fun. But it definitely didn't tell a story. And I learned from that, and actually here in the next couple of slides, I'm going to show you how I applied those and really ultimately what I was able to do down the road because I kept trying these nat sound pieces. That's loud. Commitment is one other thing I think too. We kind of talked about this at the very beginning. I think you have to be very passionate about your idea for your startup because if you're not, it'll never succeed. I think you just have to almost be in love with that company, that organization, whatever it may be, to really make it work. When you commit to a story, for example, this is a story that I solely committed to, and I actually had like several stories that I wanted to show you guys that were things that I really committed to, but I just didn't have the time to put them all in here. This is one that I think turned out because I kept fighting for it, which I think you honestly always have to do internally. You know, now that I have like employees, again, I have to come in and I have to be as positive as I possibly can be. I have to be totally committed to my company. Otherwise, they're not going to be. There's so many things that trickle down that aren't good from lack of commitment to your own project. And this is an example of really me fully committing to one. So what it was a year after Hurricane Katrina, and I kept telling the news director, because we went down there right after it happened, and it was a mess, and it was just about like dead bodies and all this really, really bad stuff. So if you mind us going back and doing a follow-up to Hurricane Katrina a year after. They're like, okay, these are the stories I want you to do. I want you to do one on rebuilding. I want you to do one on like zoning, essentially. There was a couple other ones we needed to do. And I said, you know what? What about the nightlife? What about what New Orleans is known for the most? Because I really like to do a story on that. And I actually found someone who had relocated here from New Orleans. And I met him a few times. We talked. And I asked him if I could do a story around him. And I asked him that before I even got approval to do this story. But once they committed to send us back down to New Orleans, I shot a section of him here in Des Moines, and then I followed up with it down in New Orleans. But this was totally my story. I produced it, I wrote it, and I shot it. However, Sonia ended up voicing it because she's the talent. But I've never been much one for recognition a whole lot. So, but anyway, I just want to show you guys this one real quick.
New Orleans is considered the birthplace of jazz. The city just wouldn't be the same without a hot lick sticking to the summer air. Then again, the city isn't the same. It hasn't been for a year. Before Katrina, musicians lined the Mississippi River Walk. Many have since relocated. Tonight, there are just two horns, but they speak the same language.
I was very, very surprised to see my friend here. I used to see him every day. Today is the first time I've had a conversation with him in a year.
Vance Nimms is now living in Tampa. He travels to New Orleans from time to time to work on his home. Roger Cornish has just recently returned to pick up a few gigs.
I'm here because I've, trying to find work, reconnect with family.
When they play, it's as if they never parted ways.
Every time I come, I ask where people are, but I hear that a lot of the musicians went to Colorado, some went to New York, some left the country.
And one came to Des Moines.
He's, been part of vibrant part of the music scene in New Orleans, and one of the great musicians, young masters.
My name is Mikael Williams. I'm from New Orleans. Well, I used to be from New Orleans, but I'm here now.
most musicians what they play. It's easier to ask Mikkel what he doesn't play.
I play like 30 instruments, and I play all styles of music, original, funk, reggae, classical. So sit back and relax.
His instruments are about the only thing he saved when he took shelter from Katrina in the Superdome.
And I came here from my mother's side of the family. And I'm not the type for a 9 to 5. I'm a hardcore musician.
He made a good living at it in New Orleans.
It's in the culture to dance and sing, play. From New Orleans, people tour all over the world.
Growing may be his toughest gig yet.
I'm just trying to figure this city out. But for what I do, it's not that type of culture here.
I don't think I've ever heard anything like this in Des Moines. It sounded like new, interesting jazz, sort of.
Here Mikhail plays coffee shops and cafes. The music still feeds his soul, but it doesn't put food on the table.
But that doesn't mean that I can't do it. It's just that making a living doing it is a different story.
It's now tough in New Orleans, too.
It used to be jumping. That energy's gone. Art goes where the energy is. The energy has left New Orleans because the people aren't there. We act like it doesn't bother us, but everybody's afraid.
The vibe reverberates with Mikhail's friends back home.
It's really going to be a while before the city can really bounce back.
But there's hope, and as long as there's that, this ballad may end on an upbeat note.
You know, the spirit of the music is still here, because New Orleans really wouldn't be anything without that music. Keep going with the flow. It's a journey. Life's a journey.
So I think you know, you guys watched that, can probably see that I had a lot of commitment to that story. I mean, shot a ton of footage, put my heart and soul into that. It was nominated for an Emmy. It didn't win one, but I was still pretty happy about it because this idea that I had that I followed through completely with, later got noticed by people and was nominated for an Emmy. And that was great, but it was just a fun story to tell. And I think sometimes when it comes to a business too, you just kind of have to follow your heart. And that's kind of what helps you stay committed to your projects. So this is really the last video I have, just because I wanted to kind of follow up the part about failure. Because it does take time. It's like many subtle levels of learning from failure to get to a point where you can honestly learn from it and integrate something into your company, something in your organization that really propels you to the next level. I kept doing those nat sound pieces like the bird piece many times. And I finally wanted to do one, but I didn't want to do it myself. I wanted to do one with a group. So I had 3 other photojournalists with me, and we went about this very systematically. I learned that you don't necessarily have to have like a storyboard in place, but you kind of have to know what things you want to get when they happen. Have it be very detailed, make sure everyone's on the same page, very much like a project within your company. And this is really a way to showcase things that I learned, things that not only I learned, but I was able to pass along to the other people that were going to be working with me on this. And we did a natural sound piece of overnight at the state fairgrounds. So we don't think we're going to watch this whole thing because it's a little bit long, but just keep in mind when you watch this that there's no reporter track. There's nothing kind of furthering along the story. It's all done by sounds that were picked up by our microphones intentionally, short little interviews, all woven together to tell the story about what goes on at the state fairgrounds overnight. And I think it's a lot better than the bird ride.
You don't stop until you hear something go kaput. Take it away, number 20 on the end.
Coming out during the day is a lot of fun, but
That night is even more fun.
Checking out girls and riding the rides and playing games.
It's an all-night party.
Hey, look, we can see the tractors from here.
Hey, we can.
I guarantee them it will take them more than one day to go through and see everything.
Let's go!
Ladies and gentlemen, have a very safe trip home to duty.
Good night.
Leaving the fair at what time is it? 11:40, but we're going to be back here in the morning.
Unit 3-way, let's close. Everything's done at midnight. And they got the highway patrol and the state fair police. And they walk through, everybody knows it's time to go home. And it is, it's full day. What are you up to tonight?
Waiting for them to get done so we can clean the grandstands.
Clean the grandstands? That's not fun, is it?
It takes us anywhere from 2 to 3 hours a night. So we usually have about 40 to 50 people helping us. I don't think the kids are going to be wanting to drink a beer real soon or smoke a cigarette real soon after you've cleaned up this mess.
Yeah, it's really nasty.
Well, it's pretty good sized grounds out here, and we got to cover it all.
It's really a pig pit. When everybody leaves, it's a zoo out here.
You see more cups on the street than you do concrete and asphalt.
By 6 o'clock in the morning, it looked like nobody's ever been here. It's nice and clean.
What can I get for you?
Just an order of scrambled eggs.
The Dinner Bell, though, it's known for its hot beef dinners, and it's 24-hour service and breakfast 24 hours.
This place come to get a good full course meal.
Jennifer, all the vendors, beer trucks, carnies come down.
We're kind of going to watch the whole thing, but I think you can get kind of the idea that being organized, knowing kind of what to say, what to do. I mean, we mic'd probably like 50 people that night. I mean, because it's only people's interviews, only natural sound that tells a story of what goes on. And again, it was like a passion. It was also like a lot of dozens and dozens of stories that really didn't quite reach the potential. And it was probably the first time that I had Ira Glass paragraph up there when everyone walked in. It talks about why it's so nagging when you start something and it doesn't quite reach the potential you know it has. That it's essentially like your passion toward that thought won't allow you just to take something that's mediocre. And this is probably the first time that I had worked on a story that actually met the expectations that I had for it, because of its challenges. Oh yes, I do have a couple more quick ones. But I want to stop. I do want to stop because I know we've been going at it for about 30 minutes. So I don't think I'm going to watch these. If you guys want to stick around, that's great. But I kind of want to try to wrap this up just for the sake of your day. Having fun is a big portion of it too. I think I talked a lot about early on, progression and organization and being passionate, following through, adapting to things. But honestly, having fun is a big part of it too. It helps feed that passion, helps feed the dedication you have toward it. So occasionally you just have to say to yourself, okay, we're going to do a project. It may not make us hardly any money, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We do that now at Blur, where essentially we have a tab on our website that says just for fun. It's just videos that we went out and done. We did not get paid for, but they're just a lot of fun. We realize that in business, a lot of times you're doing projects to make you money because you have to, because you got to eat, you got a mortgage, you got whatever, this and that. And you get wrapped up in it. And the next thing you know, maybe you don't have any projects that you're necessarily proud of because they're all projects you've done for money. And that's kind of why I talked about earlier on too, is kind of what's your motivation. And that's something to kind of keep in mind. And when we stopped doing that, we stopped really having fun with the projects we had. We realized that it made work not as much fun, made our projects not as cool. So I always try to incorporate a little bit of fun into every project, but sometimes it is just a good idea. Do one project for your company or organization that's just going to be fun. And people are going to, maybe it pays off in PR, maybe it pays off through social media channels, but it will show up. It will show that you're fun, and people like to see that in companies. that you're not just a stiff board, that you have capability to relate to people, have fun. So this was a story that I had done with John Cahill, where I went up on the Ruan building when they changed out all the lights. So it's just a fun story about these two crazy guys that do window washing all through the city. I guess we can watch it later if we have time.
Away among the metro's tallest.
Because you have fun, and again, this goes back to the motivation why you want to start up a company. I think a portion of that should also be to make a difference. You know, it's America, it's capitalism, we all love it, right? But I think there has to be a part of all of us that wants to do something for the greater good. And I think that, again, shows your company is more viable because you're not just in it for the money. You're doing it because you have a cause. This was something that bugged me for years and years and years. And I don't know if you guys can remember this, but the Traveler's umbrella that sits over here was defunct and crappy for years and years and years. I mean, drove up on 235, you see the skyline, and you see this like half lit up crappy neon sign of an umbrella. And this bugged the shit out of me. It bugged me so bad that I started calling the guy that managed the building. And I said, you know, well, for Channel 13, I'd like to do a story about the history of the sign. You know, I kind of call them landmark in limbo. You know, who owns it? Why isn't it fixed up? I mean, I called the guy literally every week for probably 4 or 5 months. His name is Sam Gell. Does anybody know him? I haven't met him yet, but eventually I will in the city because it's small enough. And I'll tell him who I am, and he'll probably just want to punch me in the face. I asked him if I could go up there, if I could get some shots of the sign. He said, no. I said, well, I'm still going to do the story. I'd really like to talk to you. No. So we went ahead and did the story. I didn't get all the cool shots I wanted to get. I didn't get to go, you know, all out on it. Visually, it's okay. But about a month after the story ran, they fixed the sign. And the sign's still fixed. Now, it's not like I saved someone's life or I changed someone's life, but I am happy when I drive into the city of Des Moines, coming from the east, and I can see that sign all lit up over our skyline, and know I had some small part in getting that sign fixed. So every occasionally when there's like a little bulb out, I still get a little ticked off at it. But I think it's pretty cool, and they never really called back to say, you know, we were fixing the sign. They just did it because we had brought enough attention to it. Oh yeah, I've already mentioned that. Anticipate changes. Always anticipate changes in your company. Just, you know, they're coming. There's certain things that are like written on the wall. Pay attention to them. Adapt to them, because that's so much a part of telling a story. It's so much a part of having a company and furthering that company is knowing there's changes there. And one small part of that, separate of storytelling, about my company, Blur, was that we learned a lot of people kept coming up to us saying, we'd like to do a video a week, or 2 videos a month, or an update, or this and that. And I would give them a proposal, and they'd be like, well, we can't pay that. Well, we need this content. That was probably right after we started, like 4 years ago. And, you know, we kind of take this off because, like, we want to do the projects. We try to lower our costs enough for having to still do it, but they couldn't do it. We realized that this was a trend. People were always wanting this. People were asking for it. And I do training for journalists. So one product we now have in Blur is we're training companies and organizations on how to create their own content with video. So it's 4 sessions. It's really what is content, what's content going to do for you, how are you going to use it, what's it going to be. Second session is how to produce it, storyboarding, outline, who you're going to interview, what are you going to ask them. It's just all the pre-stuff you'd have to start the project. Because you could go out without any idea what you're going to do, shoot a whole bunch of footage, come back and try to edit, and you're just going to want to throw up because you're essentially trying to tell the story backwards. The third session is basic camera shooting, pretty self-explanatory there, and basic editing. And people are always worried about the editing, but if they have an outline, they have a script, it's really about executing that in the edit bay. And that's a new product we have because we anticipate changes. Maybe Blur, all we do down the road is training. Maybe we just have like 2 or 3 guys who do short videos for the clients we already have established, but maybe we have 2 or 3 or 4 other people that just do training. But I'm going to try it. We're currently doing it now. If it fails, I'm going to learn from that failure. I'm going to try to fix it, try to make it better. But I always anticipate changes to the market, to my company, to employees, any of that stuff. Just things to kind of keep in mind. So that's really it. All wrapped up in case you guys have any questions to ask. I know you guys got in here late.
Yeah.
So no big deal, but just to let you know, I have a startup company, Blur MediaWorks, which is a media company. We do video production, media consulting, and now training. Argo Adventures, which is an adventure company that take people on canoe, kayaking, climbing, fly fishing trips. And then I have King Pong, which is my ping pong league, which is evolving now into a players club, which has foosball, ping pong, bags, and darts. So I just keep trying new things and make sure that I'm passionate about them, that I have enough time to devote to them. That's probably something I didn't say before, is make sure you have the time, you're giving yourself the time to devote to whatever project you're starting up. That's a little bit about my background, so maybe you guys can kind of hit rewind and kind of some of the things I said. But I very much appreciate you guys' time and thoughts on this. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you guys ever want to contact me, if you have a pen and paper, you can email me anytime. It's Brad at blurmw.com. I used to say it meant Blur MediaWorks, but I just say now it's Blur Midwest. I think it sounds cooler.
How do you get an invite to the Players Club?
That's an excellent question. Email me. Yeah, it is private, and I've been joking with the current members, saying like the first rule of the Players Club is you don't talk about Players Club.
Obviously.
Because you're original.
But yeah, of course. But the fact of the matter is, we do want to build up a base of people that are interested in those games. We do that all on Tuesday nights right now. But as we grow in people, I'd like to do, every day of the week. So let's say it's Monday night's ping pong night, and you're a paying member and you're in the league. You can come Monday night, you can play ping pong, but while you're waiting for a table, you can play foosball, you can play bags, and vice versa. If you're there on Tuesday nights and you're there to play bags, you can play ping pong. And another reason why it's private is it's BYOB.
Where are you guys meet at?
We're at 12th and Mulberry in the Lovejoy building. Yeah, so if you know people that are interested, I'll get you the information. Right before I came here, I just started the Facebook page. So once that kind of gets approved by all the rest of the guys. And we are an LLC, actually, with the process of getting an LLC, Players Club DSM, for like legal reasons and all that. But it allows us certain protections as an actual club organization. You can smoke cigarettes in there or whatever, but it's just kind of nice having a private club.
Oh, thanks, Brad.
Yeah.